Well, what's up, guys, and welcome back to Project Time Garage. Today's episode is all about using vintage car audio equipment for the garage. Now, like a lot of you guys, I love to crank music when I'm down here just working in the garage on stuff, and I've always used this monster speaker here, and it's been awesome. I bought it for like almost nothing from a buddy of mine, and I've had it down here for years. And it's been great until my daughter decided it would be better in her room. So that's not coming back. We need a new solution. Now, I've got quite a bit of old vintage car audio equipment. Some of it was originally high-end stuff in storage, and I've had a lot of this stuff for many, many years. And my first thought was, wouldn't it be cool to use like a retro, maybe 90s head unit and a pair of cool vintage 6x9 speakers in a quick little box, hang it on the wall, and there's your tunes, and it's a conversation piece. Plus, it kind of matches the kind of, I guess, 80s and 90s motif I've got going on here. Most of my music comes from either Spotify or Amazon Music or my local digital music collection. And really the only way to feed that into a vintage radio is via one of these, a cassette tape adapter. And these things sound really, really bad, like really bad. So that means that my listening experience would be limited to broadcast radio or maybe a cassette tape collection, which I have a few, or
the adapter of doom.
So that means I need a more modern head unit that supports Bluetooth in order to access those music sources, which means I wouldn't be able to display any of the cool and old retro gear that I now want to display. So what's it got to do? Well, we build this, which is basically a modular display stand that will support multiple head units and multiple sets of speakers, and gives us the ability to switch between radios and speakers with the push of a button. So that'll give us the ability to have modern sound and still be able to showcase the vintage stuff. So what's the plan? Well, that's simple. A box that's roughly 2 feet tall and 34 inches wide. We'll have 12-inch speaker boxes on each side and a 10-inch wide section in the middle so that we can rack up multiple head units. Now, I'd like the system to be modular, meaning that we have separate panels for each set of speakers and each radio, which gives us the ability to rapidly change stuff out, especially the radios. We'll be able to pull a panel, put a double-din radio in there and reattach it, or we can move it around inside the cabinet if we want to. We'll also try and do a nifty backlit logo panel at the top. So let's build it. First thing we're going to need is a top and bottom panel. Each one of them roughly 2 feet wide and about 10 inches deep or so. So the plan is going to be to have this be the speaker side, also this. So when it's assembled, this will be the top and this will be the bottom. So it'll sit something like this. And we will enclose both speaker cabinets, front, back, and both sides. So I'll end up having another 2 foot tall piece here, 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 and here. So this chamber will be pretty well sealed up. This section here will just contain the radios. So the idea would be that they would sit in something like this and we would just stack them up. There's no need for this to be closed on the back because we want to be able to get in and have room to, change out radios and that type thing. So this thing's going to be 2 feet tall, so 24 inches tall. That's going to be something like this as far as height goes. So we'll have plenty of room to put speakers and things in there and put radios in it, but it'll be about that tall. Okay, so I've cut 4 uprights that will go in these spots here. And then the top will sit up like this. And that will be the basic structure of it. I'll put it upright in here and upright in here. So for a total of 4 of those uprights, and then I have 2 backs to go in here to seal off the speaker enclosure. So my thought process for the front panels is that I want them to be modular. I want to have a quick, easy way of, changing out. So if I want to maybe a doubled in a hole, I can put one, or if I want a singled in, or if I want a shaft style radio, then I can just make a couple of plates and be able to move things around and, have some options. Make it so that the thing's not just built for exactly what I'm building, exactly what's in it today. I want some customization. Easiest way I think that I can do that is to use like maybe 1/8 inch plywood, something nice and thin, and we'll cut a few of them. We can cut them maybe 3 inch tall or 3.5 inch tall for a singled in, and then maybe 6 inch tall for a doubled in. And if I stay on that like 3 inch or 6 inch, then I can have maybe a rail system up and down the sides that maybe I can put some nut certs in or some threaded inserts and be able to drill holes maybe every 1.5 inches all the way down through it, so that no matter what plate I choose to put up there, what size plate, then I'm covered. So that's kind of the thought process. But I'm sure this is going to evolve a lot as I go, because I'm not a woodworking guy, so this is like taking every ounce of creativity that I can possibly muster to get this done. It's still probably going to suck, but it's going to be cool. Let me get all the holes drilled in this and get the basic framework assembled, and then we'll step back and see where we need to go from there. I'm going to use countersink bits on the other side. So this is the side that doesn't have any markings. So I'll do countersinks so that maybe I can get my screw holes hidden. I'm thinking maybe at some point I'll come back and possibly do like maybe a Formica or something, or paint it. I don't know. So, something to make it look a little bit better. Maybe a little bit of wood glue. I'm just going to use 2-inch drywall screws for this, because drywall screws seem to be the correct tool for every job. So there's one of my sides. All right. Well, that's the basic gist of it right there. Our lid will go on like that. So we'll have radios loaded in here on plates, and we'll have maybe a couple of different speaker plates loaded in here. Well, I guess it really doesn't matter which is the front, which is the rear in this particular case. So we'll just throw some glue in here and put our back panels in, and we'll call that the back. That's got our basic box put together here. I went ahead and put a couple of like reinforcements on the inside of this where our speakers are going to mount. Primary reason I did that is because I allocated for 10-inch wide panels for the radios for the head units. So if I do 10-inch wide panels like I originally talked about, then I'm not going to have enough meat here to put a speaker, or to screw down another panel for speakers. And this is such a thin, this is 3/4 inch plywood, so I didn't want to get into a situation where I'm trying to split 3/4 inch plywood. I'd rather just have enough meat and get it done. The biggest speaker that's going to be in this cabinet is going to be a 6x9 anyway, and I've got 10.5 inches of open space here for the basket, so that's way more than enough. So also I went ahead and cut my speaker panels. So the bottom one here, 8.5 inches by 12, will sit here, and then I'll have another 8-inch panel that'll sit here, and then I'll have a 5-inch panel that will sit here. And basically, I'm going to have a 3-inch gap up here at the top. And the reason I'm leaving that 3-inch gap is because I'd like to have it backlighted. I'm thinking a little bit about how I can maybe get some plexiglass and maybe get like an Alpine sticker and stick on that plexiglass, and then paint the backside of it black, and then pull that sticker off, which leaves it clear, and maybe spray paint that white and put a light back here behind it, so you have a black panel with Alpine and white. And I may try to do the same thing with like maybe a Boston Acoustics logo and maybe a Pioneer logo. I don't know. I'm just going to play around with it some and see. A lot of this is going to be kind of by the seat of my pants, like I said earlier. So anyway, that's the idea there. I think this is a common chamber. I don't know if I really care or not, because if I have door speakers in a door, as long as it's left and right channel, I mean, everything is in a common chamber called your door. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to care a lot about that or not. What I am going to do is I'm going to take each of these panels, and I'm going to go ahead and drill a small hole and tack them in with some screws so I can, kind of get an overall picture of what I'm doing. Ultimately, though, I'm going to put in threaded nutserts in this so that, I can have decorative screws and in and out bunches of times, and it doesn't end up just tearing up the wood. Here's a look at the cabinet. Basically, the frame is assembled at this point, and I've gone ahead and I've put basically it's a placeholder for my logo panel that will end up being like plexiglass, and we'll try to do something cool with that. I changed these panels from 1/4 inch to this 3/4 inch plywood. I may end up going to MDF on that. I don't know. You can see a lot of the grain and stuff in this. It's not very pretty, but at this point, the proof of concept is coming along nicely. And I've used these basically threaded screw-in, almost like nutserts, but for wood. And I said before, or if I haven't said before, I'll say it now. All the weird stuff that I'm going to use in this video to make this, I'm going to put Amazon links down below for all the stuff that I've figured out and found out. It's made my job a little bit easier on this. These are here. These are 1/4 and basically they come with a drill bit, and you just screw them in. And for these threaded nut inserts, I'm going to use 1/4 I think these are machine head screws with a really big head on them. And hopefully I can take stuff in and out, and it won't be, it won't start to wear on the wood. When I made all these panels, I basically clamped the panel in place and then drilled the hole with the panel clamped in place, and then took the panel away. And then when I took the panel away, I could run these in. Of course, even though, this was all drilled, clamped in place, and the hole was straight, when you start to run, anything threaded into the end of this kind of plywood, it wants to walk and do wonky things, which means I had to end up making my screw holes just a little bit bigger than what I wanted, but it's what I've got. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw all of these panels up here and just have a look at it and just see what it's going to look like. I've labeled them. This is L3 and this goes up. So also, I went ahead and cut a 6-inch. Really, I think it's like 5 and a little over 5 1/4 inches for a 6.5 inch speaker. I just kind of roto-zipped it in there real quick. I just kind of wanted to see what it looked like and to make sure a 6.5-inch speaker would fit in there. And L1, so left-hand side, tier 1. One thing I do regret on this, I wish I had made the box overall just a little bit wider. I was trying to keep my dimensions easy to deal with, you know, 2 foot, 1 foot. But it really made it so that my my screw holes are so close to the edge that it's almost perilously close to the edge. So I kind of regret that. But there again, I did want to try to keep it as compact and small as I possibly could. So you know, maybe this will still work out. I don't know. So that's basically our assembled overview of it. Some of these sections here, I don't know if I'll, you know, try to wood putty that or whatever. I'm gonna put some kind of a finish on this. I don't know what yet. I'm gonna do some experimenting, or I may just have to recut the panel. In all these cases, I got a little bit overzealous with the drill, and I was pushing too hard when it went through and it broke out. That's just how it is. I think the next thing that I want to try is I want to try to get a router, and I want to try to round off some of these. And I'm struggling with the best way to do it. And I know you guys that are good with woodwork and stuff are probably screaming at the screen right now, but I'm not a woodworker, so I'm just kind of learning as I go. And I don't really have any plans for this thing. All of it's just kind of in my head, and I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But anyway, I thought originally I wanted to do like a bevel, or like round off the corners on all the panels, and hoping that would kind of give it like each panel kind of gets like maybe a pillowed kind of look to it. I thought that would look cool, but I'm going to have problems rounding these edges where these bolts are, because I just don't have enough room to round them. So maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll start and I'll just take a couple of panels and round them, maybe the tops and bottoms of each of them, and see if that looks stupid or not, and then kind of go from there. So, but I also wanted to experiment a little bit with some different finishes. And here's what I'm thinking. Now, hear me out on this. I'm thinking I want to end up with like a silver or grayish kind of color on the sides, and maybe a satin black in the middle. But I'd like to have some texture to it. I'd like for it to look a little bit interesting. So I bought this. This is this you know, stone texture paint or whatever that you can get at, you know, Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever. And I'm thinking that maybe I can spray this first and get the texture on each of these panels, and then come back and top coat it with whatever, you know, whatever color I want, because you can't get this in that many colors, so you're kind of limited. The only question I have is whether or not these two will react. Will I spray this one and then spray this one and then the whole thing just wad up? I don't really know, but I'm going to find out. So that is basically everything routed off. Honestly, this stuff, the lines routed cleaner than I expected they would. I'm really surprised about that. I'll end up remaking this panel because of this right here. And for the places where most of the screws were, I chose to stop routing right there. I don't know if I'll go back and try to get the router. I don't want to end up having the screws stick out. You know, the head stick out beyond the panel or beyond the bevel. In places like this, it will do that. I guess the next step is to clean me off and then get these panels out there. I've got a test panel that I've gone ahead and sprayed the stone paint on. I'm going to let that dry up, and then I'm going to hit it with the black paint and see if the texture is what I'm looking for or not. If it is, I'll lay all these out and blast them, and hopefully at that point we can start loading some electronics in it. Probably for this video, I'll go ahead and I'll wire up one radio and a pair of speakers, because I think the radio that I want to use, it only is a 2-channel radio anyway. So I think I'll do that. Well, overnight I let this this little test panel dry, and I'm not really impressed. I don't like the texture. I don't like how it came out. So what I may do is just try and paint these and see what that looks like just with spray paint. I shot this one, this little piece of test, and it actually came out pretty darned okay. So I think that's the direction I'm going to go. Then I'm going to pull all this stuff off and get it laid out and just go ahead and paint the center part the black and the outsides the silver, and we'll see what that looks like. I mean, if I decide to change the color, no harm, no foul, because, you know, the more coats of paint you put on it, the more it hides the wood grain, so that may be okay. I considered sanding this down some to try to get some of the wood grain out, but it's already pretty smooth, and I think just with a couple of coats of spray paint, it'll probably be okay. At least that's what I'm hoping. We'll use this color for the speaker cabinet fascia. Might as well go ahead and give the outside of the cabinet a quick spritz too. I'm just going to go black with the cabinet. Seems like the easiest thing to do. Now, put this back together, and of course we want to do it before it's completely dry, because, you know, that's just who we are. Alright, so that's the cabinet with base assembly and coat of paint on it. I am still missing the logo panel up top. I ordered that the other day, except I didn't actually hit the finish and pay button on Amazon, so that should be here tomorrow again. So we'll see what we're going to do with that once that comes in. Meanwhile, I've just got a killer set of Alpine 6660 6.5-inch speakers. Had these things for a long time, but that's what I'm going to start out with in this box. That's what we're going to run first. The idea here is going to be to run these two speakers and a really old radio, you know, initially. So let's stick these in there and get them screwed down. Those speakers have been laying on my bench and in my shop for many years now. There's never been any, or I've never had them in anything. There has been a repair right there that I did. I think I dropped something or whatever, and it hit the cone there, is what it is. Also, you'll notice that up here I have cut a hole. If you remember earlier, I had a panel that had a chip. The top panel had a really bad, actually it was on this side, a really bad chip out of it. I have this panel here that I just kind of test fit for a 2-knob shaft style radio, and I just trimmed it up and went ahead and routed it, painted it and stuck it in there. Speaking of 2-knob shaft style radios, check this bad boy out. It's an old Pioneer KE1022. I think I've talked about this in another video, but here it goes again. Years and years ago, I worked for like right before college, and I think my first year of college, I worked for this place called Bud's Warehouse, and it was basically, it was owned by Walmart Corporation, and they handled all the returns from Walmart. Evidently, as opposed to just liquidating them back in the day, Walmart took them back and sent them out to, they had a few Bud stores across the country, and that's how they liquidated their returns. So I worked there, and I worked in the electronics department. And when our shipment would come in, we would have these humongous, tall, palletized boxes of just various electronics. and there were always tons and tons of radios, lots of Pioneer stuff in that. My job was to pull them out of the box, test them, and write what was wrong with them. If there was something bad wrong, we literally just chucked them in a dumpster somewhere. And if they were good, we'd put them out on the floor for sale. So I was the guy, checking all that stuff out. Had a pretty good side business going on installing radios. When somebody would come in and buy a radio, I would just ask, hey, need some help installing that? And I'd charge them like 25 bucks or 50 bucks. Come out and either install it or help them install it. So pretty good hustle for a kid that was, just barely 18 at the time. Anyway, one of the things we would do is we would write what's wrong with them, or if it's missing something, and then we write our initials on it for who tested it. There was me and a couple other guys that would do this. And years later, I'm helping, actually just a few years ago, I'm helping a friend of mine clean out his dad's barn, his dad's estate. And I saw this sitting on a shelf. And I noticed the Walmart sticker, and it had some writing on it. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if that was a Bud's Warehouse radio because it was in the same town. Lo and behold, I flip it over. There are my initials. So this is a radio that I tested in about 91, 92, something like that. And I just figured it would be a fitting thing to do something with. I was going to put it in Mr. Gray, which is another project truck on this channel, but I have a little bit better radio to go in that. So I figured this one right here is going to go at the top of the heap in our little display stand. So I think we can probably safely go ahead and at least load this radio in the display and see how it looks. Now I know this thing works because I had it out and tested it as soon as I got it home. So it definitely works. It's even got the warranty information still in there. And one of the shaft covers. Nothing special, just a like a pretty cool vintage old Pioneer radio. How awesome is that? That's pretty snazzy. Now we have a few things left to do before all this is going to work and before this stage of the project is going to be finished. I guess for now I'm just going to wire this radio up directly to these two speakers because this radio only has 2 channels. It's only a left and a right channel radio. It's not set for 4 speakers. I guess you could run it 4 speakers, but then you're going to drop the 2 ohms, and I'm not sure how stable it's going to be. Anyway, it's set for 2 speakers, so I'm going to run it on these 2 speakers for now. I guess the next thing is let's get the electronics working. For a power supply, I'm going to use this one. This is another one on Amazon or off Amazon. And like I said earlier in the video, everything I use here, I'm going to put a link down below this video in the video description area for all of it. This thing claims to be a 30 amp power supply, and I'm not sure, I definitely don't believe that. But what I'm hoping that it will run, just the radios with no problem. We're not going to be cranking all of them at the same time. In fact, I'm going to have it set up so that I have a relay system in the back so that I can only run one at the same time. I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with just hooking a bunch of speakers or a bunch of radios to 1 or 2 sets of speakers. That whole feedback thing, I'm just not so sure. I don't want to take chances. Some of this gear that I have is quite a bit older, and I don't want to destroy it. So we're going to set up relays whereby when I push a radio, a particular radio, I'll have relays that switch the outputs of that radio live, and all the other outputs of the radio will be switched to nothing, basically open, which they can tolerate. But anyway, we're going to use this power supply in an effort to run these things. It does not come with a power cord, so got to supply my own. Luckily, just any 3-prong power cord. Just cut the end off of it and attach it, and you'll be golden. This is the power cord that I intend to use. I just robbed it off of, well, actually out of my electronics drawer. It's an old computer power cord. Basically, this is what we do. We just knock the cover off of it, and very gingerly strip it back. Now, this is not very big wire. It's probably not going to hold a full 30 amps from this power supply, but there again, this power supply is not going to give us 30 amps, is it? Get them in order, and I'll just strip each of them back a goodly amount. Something like that. And I'm going to start with my neutral, because the center one is always, for me, the easiest one to get straight. That one. I'm going to switch over to the flat bit so that I can tighten them easier without having to push down so hard on this circuit board when I'm good and tight. So that is the power supply actually hooked up. Now, very important thing with these, I do not trust them, Sam, I am. So I want to verify the voltage that's coming out of this thing well before I ever hook it up to, you know, anything that I care about. So let's do that now. On the side of these, there is a switch right here that is 110 or 220. So I'm in the US, so I'm at 110. And when you move the switch, you can actually see that it actually says 110 down in there. So let's plug this thing up and let's see what the voltage is. All right, so we've got a green light. That's a good thing. And I'm gonna, at this point, I've got to say this. If you guys are following along doing this kind of thing at home, be careful. This is some pretty dangerous stuff here. These 3 terminals on the right, that is line voltage. That is AC. It will eat you. It will hurt you. So be very, very careful when you're working around this, okay? So if you're doing this, it's at your own risk. Just know I said that. Our multimeter is set to voltage DC. And we're just going to run across it looks like we have 3 terminals here labeled positive and 3 labeled negative. So let's go here and here. Looks like we're showing 12.47 volts DC. I'm okay with that. Now let's hook it up and see what it looks like with a load on it. Make sure it's maintaining that 12.4. So just for testing purposes, we're going to go ahead and hook the radio up. That's the radio sitting right there. And basically for car audio, everything has pretty much been a standard for many, many years. In this particular vintage, the orange is going to be my 12 volts constant. So this is what's going to keep the memory and the station memory and all that stuff the correct time on the radio. So in your car, you would hook this to 12 volt constant. This is the one that hooks to your switched wire. So when you turn your ignition on, this one should get power. Now, in our case, we're not going to have any of that because we're using a benchtop power supply. What we're going to do is we're going to open up the first positive or voltage plus tab, and we're just going to run that in there. And for our ground, it's got this madness here on it. You'll see all these extra leads. These older radios, the ones that have the ones that only have two speakers, they have a common ground. So this ground goes to a ground on your car body, and that grounds the radio, and these two are a common ground for the speakers. So this is also known as the negative lead of the speakers. So it all goes together. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip this mess off of here, and I'll go ahead and strip these back, and we'll just put a spade terminal on it for now. This is another kit that I got from Amazon. I'll link that down below too. I should have spade connectors like that. Yellow ones should be plenty big enough to go. No, it's not a standard size. That's excellent, excellent, excellent. So what we'll do is we'll basically twist all of these together, and we will put them under this terminal, which is our first ground terminal. There we go. So I've got power and ground hooked up. So really all I need now is my speakers. On these, again, on these older radios, I've only got 3 more wires left here. I've got a green and a gray here. Obviously the green is green, but somebody has spliced on a blue, but it's green and gray. Green is going to be our left speaker positive. So this is the left cabinet. And I believe this one here is positive for this cabinet. And for the ground for that speaker, we'll just have this extra ground lead that was here. And then for the other speaker, that's going to be our gray wire, which doesn't have anything on it. It needs a lead on it. Matter of fact, I'm going to cut that. That is frizzy and free. Let's do that right there. That's an awfully small wire. Wow. There we go. There. So positive, I think, is this way on this one. And then we only have one other speaker wire that is our other ground. So that has us hooked up. The black wire coming out of here, one goes to the radio chassis ground, and one goes to each speaker negative terminal. We have our orange and red both going to power. And the only one that's left here is this blue wire. And that's pretty much universally either blue or blue with a white stripe. It's either going to be power antenna or remote amp turn on. Sometimes you can use them interchangeably, but not always. Sometimes the remote turn on wire comes on with the radio, but the power antenna wire only comes live when you turn to tuner. So keep that in mind. Let's power this thing up and let's see if it blows the radio off the wall. Okay. Power. Well, I hear a fan that I didn't hear before. Let's go to the front and look. Okay, that wasn't a fan. That is static on FM radio. How can we test this? I know how. How about with a Zune? Yeah, everybody should have a Zune. And a cassette deck thingy. Music. Shuffle all. Obviously, I can't let you listen to very much of this, but okay, that works. How about some more volume from El Zune? Unfortunately, I got to mute your sound for a minute because I want to turn this thing up to a normal listening volume, and I'm going to go back there and check the voltage, but I'll get copyrighted, so enjoy the muteness. Okay, well, it was unwavering, 12.46, 12.47, so obviously it can at least put out enough amperage to keep up with that little radio, which is not really tough. I'm interested to see what it's going to do when we get a bigger, like doubled in, more modern, higher power radio that's pushing, you know, some better speakers in it. So that'll be an interesting thing to see. All right, well, I guess the last piece of the puzzle is what we're going to do for this logo panel up here. I've got on my daughter has a Cricut, and I've gotten on there, and I've printed out all my, or at least I have laid out all my stickers and flipped them in reverse and all that, so that when the plexiglass gets here, all I should have to do is cut it to the right size, go ahead and drill the holes in it, and then affix my logos to it the way I want it. Then we'll paint the back of it, and then we'll pull those logos off, and then we'll paint that area white where the logos used to be, so that looks like we meant to do it. So stand by for a second and we'll start working on that. My plexiglass came in, so I went ahead and cut the panels down and got them fitted up there decently. The screw holes are not level, and I did my dead level best to try to use guides to do those, and they just, even when you use guides, as soon as you try to run those nutserts in, they walk up or down every single time. The other thing, I cut my stickers, and if you'll notice, they're cut completely backward. The idea is to be able to stick them onto the glass from the inside that way so that it will read correctly this direction. Yeah, they're purple, but it really doesn't make any difference because we're just going to paint over it and then pull these off. Unfortunately, though, these stickers are too big. They're the right size for the plexiglass panel, but what I didn't account for is the fact that I'm in 3/4 and I'm in 3/4 on this one too, which means I would have to shrink these even smaller, and I don't really want to shrink these any smaller, I don't think. I don't know, we might. But either way, they're going to be off-centered here a little bit. I don't know. Thinking about this, I think I may back up. And I think I may just order a piece of plexiglass that is 36 inches long because this is 34. And that way I can do one continuous 3.5 inch panel all the way across the top. And rather than backlighting it, I guess I can just paint it black on the back side and put the stickers on it here. Maybe that's what we'll end up doing. I don't know. But that's going to look weird because the sticker is going to have to be offset here and offset here and centered here. And it's just going to look weird, I think. Okay, so I got my plexiglass and I got it cut down and I got it put in there. And I just really don't like the way it looks as far as having breaks in it. So I stopped and I just ordered a piece of 36-inch plexiglass that will basically replace this board and span the entire thing. I think that'll look a little bit better. And I also think that rather than doing relief cuts and stuff on the back of this and having light shine through it, I think we're going to paint the inside of it black and then just put the stickers on the outside of it here. These cavities are not exactly square, so I'm either going to have really small logos if I go on the inside, or I'm going to have to have them off-centered, and I don't think that's going to look very good. So that's what we're going to do. Also, I dug out this gem, which actually has a tape in it. Who's this? Hey, Brooks and Dunn. That's a keeper. I dug that out, so I'm also going to mount that up here on top. It's a little bit too big to waste one of these 10 slots for it, but this will be on there running as well. I think I'm going to go ahead and choose to end the video here because A, it's getting pretty long, and B, everything else that I'm going to do is going to deal with electronics. So on the next video on this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to load out all the radios that I'm going to put in here and all the speakers. Actually, I've got a pair of speakers that need to be refoamed before I can put them in here. So we're going to load all that stuff out and we're going to go on the back. I'm going to show you what I'm doing as far as the relays and the bus bars and all that stuff. And we'll try to tidy up the back and make that look a little bit better. But for now, that is basically our box built. Now we just got to load it up. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this is a deviation from what I normally do, but this is something else I do. In fact, I have another tech channel called Project Time Tech that has a little bit more stuff like this, but I don't know if this video would fit good in there, so I put it on this channel. But anyway, guys, like I said, as usual, I really appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about us. Guys, I'll see you next time.